no longer played in the alley of Waverly Place. I never visited the playground where the pigeons and old men gathered. I went to school, then directly home to learn new chess secrets, cleverly concealed advantages, more escape routes. But I found it difficult to concentrate at home. My mother had a habit of standing over me while I plotted out my games. I think she thought of herself as my protective ally. More characterization of her mother. Her lips would be sealed tight, and after each move I made, a soft humph would escape from her nose. Ah, I can't practice with you standing there like that, I said one day. She retreated to the kitchen and made loud noises with the pots and pans. When the crashing stopped, I could see out of the corner of my eye that she was standing in the doorway. Only this time it came out of her tight throat. My parents made many concessions to allow me to practice. Okay, we've got parents making sacrifices. One time I complained that the bedroom I shared was so noisy that I couldn't think. Thereafter, my brothers slept in a bed in the living room facing the street. I said I couldn't finish my rice. My head didn't work right when my stomach was too full. I left the table with half-finished bowls and nobody complained. There was one duty I couldn't avoid. I had to accompany my mother on Saturday market days when I had no tournament to play. My mother would proudly walk with me, right? There's mother's pride again. Visiting many shops, buying very little. This my daughter, Waverly John, she said to whoever looked at her. One day, after we left a shop, I said under my breath, I wish you wouldn't do that, telling everybody I'm your daughter. My mother stopped walking. Crowds of people with heavy bags pushed past us on the sidewalk, bumping into first one shoulder, then another. So shame be with mother. She grasped my hand even tighter as she glared at me. I looked down. It's not that. It's just so obvious. It's just so embarrassing. Embarrassed you be my daughter? Her voice was cracking with anger. That's not what I meant. That's not what I said. What you say? I knew it was a mistake to say anything more, but I heard my voice speaking. Why do you have to use me to show off? If you want to show off, then why don't you learn to play chess? My mother's eyes turned into dangerous black slits. She had no words for me, just sharp silence. Throughout, right, we've learned about the power of silence, right? The power of not saying anything. So here's her mother using that power of silence. I felt the wind, here's wind again, although this time I think maybe it's real, hard to know for sure, rushing around my hot ears. I jerked my hand out of my mother's tight grasp and spun around, knocking into an old woman. Her bag of groceries spilled to the ground. Stupid girl, my mother and the woman cried. Oranges and tin cans careened down the sidewalk. As my mother stooped to help the old woman pick up the escaping food, I took off. I raced down the street, dashing between people, not looking back as my mother screamed shrilly, May May, May May. I fled down an alley, past dark curtained shops and merchants washing the grime off their windows. I sped into the sunlight, into a large street crowded with tourists examining trinkets and souvenirs. I ducked into another dark alley, down another street, up another alley. I ran until it hurt, and I realized I had nowhere to go, that I was not running from anything. The alleys contained no escape routes. Can't escape. You can start digging into the symbolism there of what it is that she can't escape, right? Can she not escape her family? Can she not escape her heritage? Can she not escape literally, obviously, from these alleys? But that seems as sort of symbolically significant to me as I'm reading this. My breath came out like angry smoke. It was cold. I sat down on an upturned plastic pail next to a stack of empty boxes, cupping my chin with my hands, thinking hard. I imagined my mother, first walking briskly down one street or another looking for me, then giving up and returning home to await my arrival. After 2 hours, I stood up on creaking legs and slowly walked home. The alley was quiet and I could see the yellow lights shining from our flat like two tigers' eyes in the night. I climbed the 16 steps to the door, advancing quietly up each so as not to make any warning sounds. I turned the knob. The door was locked. I heard a chair moving, quick steps, the locks turning. Click, 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 and then the door opened. About time you got home, said Vincent. Boy, are you in trouble. He slid back to the dinner table. On a platter were the remains of a large fish, its fleshy head still connected to bones swimming upstream in vain escape. Standing there waiting for my punishment, I heard my mother speak in a dry voice. We not concerning this girl. This girl not have concerning for us. Nobody looked at me. Bone chopsticks clinked against the insides of bowls being emptied into hungry mouths. I walked into my room, closed the door, and lay down on my bed. The room was dark, the ceiling filled with shadows from the dinner-time lights of neighboring flats. In my head, I saw a chessboard with 64 black and white squares. Opposite me was my opponent, two angry black slits. Right? That's meant to be her mother, right? Chess game, except this time it's her mother. She's imagining this, right? In what ways, I might ask myself, how is her relationship with her mother like a chess game? She wore a triumphant smile. Strongest wind cannot be seen. And this is a return to the beginning of the story. Her black her black men advanced across the plain, slowly marching to each successive level as a single unit. My white pieces screamed as they scurried and fell off the board one by one. As her men drew closer to my edge, I felt myself growing light. I rose up into the air and flew out the window, higher and higher above the alley, over the tops of tiled roofs, where I was gathered up by the wind and pushed up towards the night sky until everything below me disappeared and I was alone. I closed my eyes and pondered my next move. Again, this ties me back to this question, the sort of big overarching. Is this story about chess, or is this story really about her relationship with her mother? And chess is sort of a device for discussing that. That's something to think about as you start digging into kind of the meanings behind this story.